things that do get something to say is humor. Okay, I'm checking my poker. Say I'm going to have a speech about philosophy. What is actually is philosophy? Ooh, okay. Known that I'm going to have a speech. Excuse me. This I do have a word that actually I'm thoughtful about. Philosophy. I'm talk about what is actually in meaning for what were in philosophy. Why reasoning that this is about mutual state, a noun that were relate to compensate the lies behind that through line of time there is a secret that is or through thing that pre-colonial age the pre-colonial age is a form that making known to say what would too thoughtful about human mind. The philosophy age is the one that is actually meaning philosophy age of what only in where about saying this philosophy age is the one that are from meaning for who I am in the mutual state of what is treaty in meaning that about a majestic trust. The majestic of a majestic trust. Inequality, this that relate to that this speech every ever for explain to for what R actually is. That I'm relay to say this base study of what is actually the colonial age that were in the time. I'm sensing the differentiate who today become the do get of this government of my government of Indonesia that my state of English second or original language is the one that is making this different to an effort of study. In historium, ever for its Treaty Bahasa. Treaty of act that is making up a bahasa. The one that is in pre-colonial. In line that is equal to say meaning has a line to say the the mandatory of who are the secret that is lies behind the pre-colonial. In where the pre-colonial in around about after the rising of colonial age, colonial time, excuse me, in colonial, whereas this philosophy is about mutual to say salvation in about making up what are to agree that in before worse to happen in invasion if there is worse. They're all that we know about the historic or historian wrote about something such a something that never been taught or never been understand why the island where I am belong is different. Philosophy. Philosophy where we understand island. Island of Batavia, before that time named differently, of to being an island. Batavia, today known as other name to be different by before the journal to understand about the pre-colonial. That in the pre-colonial state, understand on the mutual, even every forever name to be Batavia actually has that critical modern state to say we that never guessed or never did guess that this millennia of line having the differentiate of what are actually time in exclusively philosophy that I'm thinking through about an accommodation that is prospectus. This piece relate to who actually are the historian do study about the philosophy of who we are in explanation of whose mind that is behind everything of the pre-colonial. In the pre-colonial that I'm trying to learn or to write about the message of what actually a clue to say if else there is a breadcrumb to have the nice commentary from every other reasoning commentary that making effort to study the pre-colonial or the colonial age by the island of Batavia. I know never been taught about the Treaty of Bahasa. Bahasa itself more just a word to say just known of citation about as the Batavia is an island. There is another more that is make up actually Borneo. An establishment long before its colonial age. What is an explanation of mutual state of treaty throughout the Bahasa? It has its meaning. The meaning that actually making philosophy to be posed differently before the invasion of the Japanese. That one upon after the Pearl Harbor. The independent that we are claim is actually, I believe, would be wrong conceptualization that try to make up something that repeatedly about the majestic of the pre-colonial, but eventually they are make mistake. Who are Indonesia? As we know, who are is Indonesia actually are the one that is aged because it's draw the evaluation of conclusion that they think they are the one that is being acknowledging for one person that proclaim after the president, but they are wrong to get the thing about the mind to understand explanation or explanationary to what they are thinking or who we are, as I was shocked yesterday, as the truth of what actually the government that is today in try to understand the sovereign. Nobody does not understand the word of what is actually sovereign. Sovereign that is actually making everything wisdom or to have the salvation of the army or the soldier that behind everything that in colonial in the philosophy or who they are before this name and known as Indo China, that in the ancestry of who we are or my covenant, my ancestor covenant is one that is actually appointed to be the covenant. Then the clan that we have the name of relate manner of being family in native reasoning original state of after the occupation, the dawn of the broken Sriwijaya. But that is gibberish problem of what problem that messy about not related to the covenant, what are the covenant is in pre-colonial state because the philosophy. I'm thinking through what time in Indonesia to understand who are the one that is going to say the word of repeating of treaty within Bahasa. As I investigate what is Bahasa, meaning the design of conceptualization that is civil rights for the living before the for the form-based trading of rupiah in pound of monetary. The philosophy of what is actually making the journal. The philosophy of the European arrival. That time that is departed to the place known as Singapore is calling the other European, or what I call from where I belong, where the quadrant of my island from, I'm going to say is European as Europa, Citium. As Europa Citium is the one that is I'm concerned because the indication of social syndrome that line in our ancestry that is differentiated by the memorium that I myself try to understand what reasoning make up the mistake that is today mistake within the foreigner of exchange. The trading that is applied before by its time. The philosophy. I'm more enjoy to say the happy people time that I'm wondering about. warned about the time that is what a scene or a scene that is actually living up why the ancestor of between tweaking the both of reasoning to say it's a floor form that is built to say civil capacity of building a cultural that is making everyone to understand what is actually salvation. In this speech, my redemption is thinking to say, I'm say why does the people or who I am to think about my speech in philosophy. Is Parian to say my looking for purpose of other commentary to say if my mistake saying this word of Treaty Bahasa. My debate would say, is it one that is correct to say it, one is that is related to conform the civil based belief building of what is civil of salvation. In where I am belong, where is Indonesia or my origin, known is was were known is not manner to say mentioning, but way of my expression to say in language because my concern. The differentiate of covenant, who we are as one were was, as the covenant of deal with do get the clan of the other known that they claim today is the other kingdom within base of the Batavia. This is the one that I'm thinking through. My spoken speaking of explanation is not about what is Java, but what is actually manner in Java is actually our mannering about the relation why the invasion of Japanese holding vanquishing of everything that is actually the precolonial has been states to prepare for the act, the Java Island Act, to who we are to be endorsed. As our independent, I studied the social syndrome. I'm writing in my what is Bahasa mean. This is by its social. By language would be wrote as a social syndrome. As the social syndrome has the Latin of capitalism that I understand in critical modernism more than its technology to understand the way our linguistic form or form to say expression in a meaning to say the way of understanding is different. As I know the salvation of being Batavia at that time, my prediction is about if a mistake of the government would lead to the worst of scenario to say unseen that is going to make the country miserable because the state of what is our form that is applied to the poverty. By the memoriam that I'm thinking about what is pre-colonial, why is the Treaty of Bahasa? The pre-colonial is the one that is actually preparation leading story to be the predicted to be the best of who we are, or redemption that our ancestor willing to say what is the Great Britain or the other that is alliance after the Dutch, or who I am as my covenant ancestry of the covenant, that having the difficulties of what clan that they are once upon, making what were actually gesture that is lying in the historic moment that never been taught, never been understand, or in a scene that miss everything about what who we are because the invasion of the Japanese. That I believe pre-colonial in philosophy is one that I hope to be bring the best of who we are as Indonesian government, or the countrymen, or the people by the people for the being republic. And I believe in imperialism to say the do of what actually do get the best who we are as sovereign. I hope to for to future of tomorrow as the majestic of the pre-colonial era that I will study about is about the philosophy. Care one that is actually making up what is Bahasa. Beijing assumption, assuming Beijing is one that is actually my ancestor long before became Indonesia. Beijing is the one that is actually are the ancestry who we are from the dynasty of Ming. But it's been told only the Han dynasty from that by the emperor was told to say our historium. I'm saying the historium because it's want to say the clue is different. The historian is basically based off someone wrote to say the storytelling about the historic moment. But I say refer to other word to say historian. And Beijing assuming historium and associate predicted as its society is about our alignment. Alignment that actually make up the B capital, it being a word of this Beijing assuming historium associate society alignment is why is my from covenant the ancestor are as Bahasa, or known as what is actually the pre-colonial was established the word that miraculously I believe so much that eventually no one know what is actually Bahasa before. Beijing assuming historium associate society alignment that I'm studying for and try to make a speech of effort to understand what actually the future making up for the reasoning for the critical modern such as a computer study of everything and what is living or true civil rights to conclude that what is actually philosophy in pre-colonial. The administration of what is in where there are accommodation when to say Treaty Bahasa is the philosophy truth that I want or I'm willing to know about, say, why reasoning with the one that is actually would be beautiful is we never being having the word conversation about the aggression after the invasion of the Japanese. I am sadly to say that is this speech about almost what are lies in between, that is before the miracles or miracle, that going to say everything. Would say beautiful or happy fool to say the world would be better if we never have that differ other or prospectus that these are said today. The believer of what is actually Bahasa is said by the two, but between the pair of an island, Borneo and Batavia. The B word is actually the one that is making uh, alignment of a capital reasoning in Latin world of what actually imperialism. Or imperium, that I would say the one that should be not hatred by a person of who's the president in the first of the beginning. So this is my study of precolonial, not yet conclusion, but I'm going to have more speech for today and tomorrow or ever after, forever, to say at least I'm having the better spoken to say I understand the word, because not eventually to say the social syndrome that I'm worried about, to say not to be being miserable, or way all the way to stay who going to savior myself if it's not having the calm position of status in absolute. Okay, I think I'm going to stay being objective to say philosophy again. To say philosophy because I'm going to say tomorrow or after hour, I'm going to say another practical speech about who I am to be if worth the covenant of the pre-colonial study. Okay, thank you everyone. I'm going to out from my live performing appearance of a speech. Philosophy line when we're pre-colonial age is still continue in the rigging of the second.